Welcome back to the Explainer Biological Detectives. Today, we're literally stepping into the field to tackle a worked practice for Life Science Unit 1, Lesson 4. We're going to use structural clues to classify a total mystery organism. Think of this as your ultimate 7th grade life science challenge, combining our foundational knowledge of classifying living things with the wild diversity we see out there, from the tiniest bacteria all the way up to complex plants. We'll be looking super closely at how structures help living things survive and reproduce. So, grab your gear and get ready to use those keen observation skills. Okay, let's take a quick look at the level map for today's mystery. We've got 1. The Unknown Organism Challenge. 2. Level A, Bacteria versus Plants. 3. Clearing up a major misconception, fungi and protists. 4. Level B, Plant Reproduction. 5. Our CER Challenge, Squirrels and Nuts. And finally, 6. Our Lesson Review and Parent Close. Let's get into it. Section 1, the Unknown Organism Challenge. We're kicking off this worked practice with a huge mystery to solve, using our Chapter 1 classification skills. Imagine you're a scientist who just stumbled upon a totally new organism in the wild. I mean, where do you even begin? Well, when faced with a mystery life form, we have to ask ourselves how we can systematically narrow down what it is, right? We need a decision tree model. Scientists don't just guess. They use observable physical structures to categorize living things. This helps them understand relationships and differences. And one of the absolute best tools for this, it's called a dichotomous key. It's basically a series of simple either-or questions based on the structure and function of the organism, and it leads you, step by step, right to the correct classification. So let's see how this builds our dichotomous key by breaking our classification down into super manageable steps. Step 1, we actually look at the very building blocks of the organism, its cells. We check the cell count and structure. Is it incredibly simple or highly complex? If we determine it's complex, we move right along to step 2, or we check the reproduction method. Does it use simple spores or more advanced seeds? Moving to Section 2, Level A, Bacteria versus Plants. It's time to take the very first branch of our decision tree to separate the absolute simplest organisms from the more complex ones. So, the really crucial point here is determining if our mystery organism is a simple, single-celled bacterium or a complex, multicellular plant. On one side of our key, we have bacteria. Now, all living things are made of cells, which are the smallest living units. Bacteria are unicellular, meaning their entire existence is wrapped up in just one single microscopic cell. And hey, there are literally billions of them all around us right now. On the flip side, we have plants. Plants are multicellular organisms packed with specialized structures. Crucially, and the official science standards really point this out, plants have these complex systems to capture energy from sunlight, combine it with carbon dioxide and water, and actually make their own food through a process we know as photosynthesis. So, if our mystery organism is multicellular and makes its own food, boom, we've successfully navigated Level A. Section 3, Misconception, Fungi and Protists. But hold on, before we just assume everything complex is a plant, let's clear up a massive 7th grade stumbling block. This is where a lot of young scientists accidentally take a wrong turn on their dichotomous key. You see, protists and fungi actually belong on a completely different branch of our decision tree. Why? Because they get their food completely differently than plants do. Plants, as we just established, are multicellular and use photosynthesis. Protists, however, are a super diverse group. They're mostly single-celled and, get this, they can act plant-like, animal-like, or even fungus-like. And then we have fungi. Sure, a mushroom might kind of look like a plant because it grows out of the ground, and yeah, they are mostly multicellular, but fungi do not use photosynthesis. No way. They're decomposers. They literally break down dead organic material to survive. Because their structure and function for getting energy is completely different, fungi are strictly separated from plants in our classification system. Keep that in mind. All right, Section 4, Level B, Plant Reproduction. Having successfully confirmed our organism is a plant because it's multicellular and uses photosynthesis, we now advance to Level B to figure out exactly what kind of plant it is, based entirely on how it reproduces. We have to decide if our plant uses simple spores to reproduce, kind of like a fern, or if it has evolved to use seeds. As we look at plant diversity, we see two major categories. Seedless plants, like those ferns you might see on a damp forest floor, reproduce by releasing tiny spores out into the environment. Seed plants, on the other hand, include things like conifers, the ones with cones, and flowering plants. They reproduce using seeds, which are far more complex. They actually contain a protective coat and a built-in food supply for the developing plant embryo. It's like a little survival kit. And it's amazing because seed plants use incredibly specialized structures to increase their odds of successful reproduction. The science standards explicitly ask us to explain how specialized plant structures affect the probability of reproduction. I mean, think about it. Plants can't exactly just get up and walk around to find a mate or spread their offspring, right? So they rely on these incredible adaptations. They develop bright, flashy flowers specifically designed to catch the eye of a passing butterfly. They produce sweet nectar and distinct odors to draw in pollinating insects, totally ensuring pollen gets transferred. They even grow hard shells around their seeds, like nuts, so that animals will interact with them and physically transport them to new locations. It is a brilliant example of how a physical structure is directly tied to a life-saving function. Section 5, CER Challenge, Squirrels and Nuts. Okay, we are finally ready to put all this structure function knowledge to the ultimate test with our CER Challenge. This is where we get to act like true scientists. Now remember, a strong scientific argument requires you to make a claim, back it up with solid evidence, and connect the two with logical reasoning. That's CER. This is exactly what the middle school life science standards expect from us, using empirical evidence and scientific reasoning to really support an explanation. So let's take a look at a very specific relationship between a plant structure and an animal behavior. I want you to use your CER skills to argue how a plant producing a hard-shelled nut that a squirrel buries is actually a brilliant specialized structure for plant reproduction. Okay, so your claim might be something like, hard shells on nuts increase a plant's chances of reproducing, right? Your evidence, directly from our lesson, is that squirrels gather these hard nuts and bury them in the ground to store them for winter. And then your reasoning ties the whole shebang together. The hard shell protects the seed inside from being immediately destroyed or eaten by smaller insects, because the squirrel buries the nut in the soil, which, by the way, is exactly where a seed needs to be to grow, and then thankfully for the tree forgets where it hid a large percentage of them. That squirrel is accidentally planting a forest. The plant has literally adapted a structure to manipulate animal behavior to its own reproductive advantage. I mean, how cool is that? That is the absolute power of evolutionary adaptation. Section 6, Lesson Review and Parent Close. You have done an absolutely incredible job navigating the decision tree today. So let's quickly review our findings. By successfully classifying our organism and identifying specialized reproductive structures, you have officially mastered today's worked practice. We proved that we can use observable traits to navigate a dichotomous key. We separated simple, unicellular bacteria from complex, multicellular plants that synthesize their own food. We made sure we definitely didn't confuse decomposer fungi with plants. And finally, we explored the fascinating world of plant reproduction, proving how specialized structures, from bright flowers to hard-shelled nuts, interact with the environment and animal behaviors to completely ensure the survival of the species. And parents listening in, this means your student just successfully applied crucial scientific reasoning regarding structure and function. They are hitting those core middle school life science standards head on. So I really encourage you to keep the conversation going tonight. Ask them, how does a squirrel burying a nut help an entire forest grow? Challenge them to explain the claim, evidence, and reasoning right back to you. And for all of our biological detectives watching, the next time you look at a simple flower, a mushroom, or even just a scurrying squirrel, ask yourself, what secret survival strategies are hiding right in front of you? Until next time, keep exploring.